In 2019, Real Madrid, the world's most glamorous football club, made a decision that would change everything. A single contract worth $300 million. It wasn't for building a new stadium. It wasn't for buying an entire squad. It was for one man. A man they believed would be the face of a new era. The player who could replace the irreplaceable Cristiano Ronaldo. The deal shattered football records. It sent shockwaves across Europe. The media called it the Galáctico gamble. But behind the glitz, champagne, and flashing cameras, there was a problem. Real Madrid was already operating on razor-thin margins. Their debts were rising. Matchday revenues were falling short. And they had just committed $300 million, when you include transfer fees, agent commissions, and 5 years of wages, on a player who had never faced this level of pressure before. At first, the dream seemed alive. Merchandise sales spiked. TV rights negotiations heated up. Sponsors lined up. But within months, injuries struck. Form dipped. And the man who was supposed to save Madrid was now being whispered about as the man who might bankrupt them. This is the untold story of how a single contract, meant to secure Real Madrid's dominance, pushed them to the edge of a financial cliff. And how the deal that promised glory became one of the most dangerous bets in football history. For decades, Real Madrid wasn't just a football club. It was a symbol. A brand built on kings, presidents, and global superstars. From Alfredo Di Stefano in the 50s, to the Galáctico era of Zidane, Beckham, and Ronaldo in the early 2000s. Madrid made a habit of rewriting football history, not just on the pitch, but in the boardroom. But that ambition came with a price. By 2018, the club's financial model relied heavily on three things. Matchday revenue from the Bernabéu, commercial deals with global brands, and player merchandise sales from star signings. It was a high-risk, high-reward machine. And at the center of it was one man, Cristiano Ronaldo. Ronaldo wasn't just scoring goals. He was printing money. From shirt sales to sponsorship boosts, his presence alone added hundreds of millions to Madrid's value. When he left for Juventus in 2018, he took more than 40 goals a season with him. He took the brand. He took the fear factor. Suddenly, Madrid had a hole, not just in attack, but in revenue streams. Ticket sales dropped. TV audiences dipped. And for the first time in years, Florentino Perez, the club's powerful president, felt pressure from the board and fans. In the background, a new danger was emerging. Barcelona, their greatest rival, was breaking financial records with Neymar, Messi, and sponsorship megadeals. Paris Saint-Germain had shocked the world with the $263 million Neymar transfer. The arms race was on. For Perez, doing nothing wasn't an option. Madrid had to make a statement. A signing so big that it would restore global dominance and silence critics. That's when the scouting reports and marketing presentations all pointed to one man. A rising superstar in the Premier League, still in his prime, with the marketability of a rock star. It wasn't just about football anymore. It was about survival. And in 2019, with the cameras flashing and the Bernabéu roaring, Real Madrid unveiled their new savior. A Belgian winger, with a $300 million price tag attached to his name. In June 2019, the Bernabéu became a cathedral once again. Over 50,000 fans packed the stadium just to watch a man walk on the grass. Eden Hazard, the man who conquered the Premier League. The man Real Madrid believed could fill the void Cristiano Ronaldo left behind. The numbers behind his transfer were staggering. An initial $113 million transfer fee to Chelsea. Performance bonuses worth up to $30 million. Agent commissions in the millions. And a 5-year contract worth over $25 million a season after tax. All in, the deal would cost Madrid nearly $300 million if Hazard stayed for the full term. But in the first weeks, it looked like money well spent. Shirt sales surged. Hazard's unveiling day alone brought in over $1.5 million in merchandise. Sponsors used his arrival to renegotiate contracts. Adidas, Emirates, and other partners saw his star power as a chance to push deeper into European and Asian markets. On the pitch, Madrid's marketing machine painted a picture of a new era. Billboards across Spain read, El Mago ha llegado, the magician has arrived. Season ticket renewals jumped. TV rights negotiations with broadcasters in Asia saw a spike in interest. And for a brief moment, Florentino Perez looked like the genius who'd outmaneuvered Europe's richest clubs. But there was more than just money in play. For fans, Hazard wasn't just a star, he was a symbol of belief. After a season without Ronaldo, where Madrid failed to win La Liga and exited the Champions League early, his arrival felt like a return to ambition. And early in the pre-season friendlies, glimpses of that Chelsea magic appeared. The dribbles, the feints, the through balls. Madrid believed. The sponsors believed. Even the media believed. But in football, belief can be fragile. Because in the very first months of his debut season, everything began to change. The dream was about to turn into a nightmare. It happened in November 2019. A Champions League night at the Bernabéu. A challenge from Thomas Meunier. Eden Hazard clutched his ankle. The crowd gasped. At first, Madrid's medical staff said it was nothing serious. But scans told a different story. A microfracture. Weeks out, became months out. The $300 million man had barely worn the white shirt, and already, the marketing machine that had been built around him began to stall. Without Hazard, Madrid's commercial buzz dipped. Merchandise sales slowed. TV viewership, especially from overseas markets, began to plateau. Meanwhile, the financial commitments didn't stop. Hazard's salary, over $500,000 a week, still hit the wage bill. The amortized transfer fee still hit the books. And with new financial fair play regulations tightening, Real Madrid's margin for error shrank dangerously thin. Florentino Perez's gamble was now threatening the balance sheet. Then came the pandemic in early 2020. No fans in stadiums. No matchday revenue. The Bernabéu renovation project, already costing hundreds of millions, continued draining funds. And on the pitch, Hazard struggled to regain form. Every return was followed by another setback, hamstring, muscle fatigue, ankle flare-ups. By the end of his second season, Hazard had missed more games than he'd played. Sponsors who had tied their campaigns to Hazard quietly shifted focus to other players. Benzema, Vinicius Jr., even Luka Modric. But the damage was done. Madrid's accountants now faced an uncomfortable truth. Hazard's deal wasn't just underperforming, it was actively pulling the club toward financial instability. And yet, selling him was impossible. No club in Europe would match his salary. No one would pay a significant transfer fee. Madrid was trapped. The man who was meant to save the post-Ronaldo era had become the most expensive benchwarmer in club history. The Bernabéu faithful, once chanting his name, now watched in silence. And in the boardroom, Florentino Perez had to face the reality that this wasn't just a bad signing. It was a financial crisis in disguise. By 2021, the writing was on the wall. Eden Hazard was no longer the face of Real Madrid's future, he was a financial weight the club couldn't shift. The $300 million gamble had turned into a silent crisis. Not a collapse, but a slow bleed. Real Madrid's wage bill was now one of the highest in Europe. They were paying a superstar salary for a player who was averaging fewer than 15 appearances a season. With COVID-19 slashing matchday revenues by over $100 million in a single year, and the Bernabéu redevelopment still costing hundreds of millions, every wasted euro mattered. But Florentino Perez was no ordinary club president. He had built his career on engineering financial turnarounds. And this time, he needed to think bigger than ever. The first move was cost control. Perez pushed through wage cuts across the squad. A 10% reduction during the pandemic saved millions. Big money signings were put on hold. Madrid went 2 full seasons without a Galáctico-style transfer. The second move was youth elevation. Instead of buying stars, Madrid doubled down on developing them. Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo, and Federico Valverde became the new faces of the club, young, affordable, and with huge resale value potential. The third move was trophy leverage. Winning the 2022 Champions League boosted commercial deals, offsetting some of the Hazard losses. The spotlight shifted back to the club's success, not its expensive mistake. And finally, Perez began quietly planning Hazard's exit. By 2023, Madrid negotiated a mutual termination of his contract, freeing up wage space and closing the book on one of the most expensive missteps in football history. But the lessons remained. The Hazard deal taught Madrid, and the football world, that even the richest clubs can be brought to the brink by one bad contract. It proved that global brand power can't protect you from poor financial planning. And it reminded everyone that in modern football, a player is as much a financial asset as they are an athlete. Real Madrid survived. They adapted. They rebuilt. But the $300 million Hazard gamble will forever be remembered as the deal that almost brought the kings of Europe to their knees.